In my opinion, Onimusha 2 just got way better. Some games get showered in awards, spark decade-long franchises, and get re-released every time a new console sneezes. And then there are games like Onimusha 2, Samurai's Destiny, quietly brilliant, criminally overlooked, and now finally resurrected from PS2 purgatory like a vengeful demon with a very sharp sword. Originally released in 2002, this slice of a supernatural samurai drama was Capcom at its most gloriously unhinged. Fixed camera battles against the demon warlords, historical fanfiction starring Nobunaga Oda and his suspiciously good-looking sister, and a soul-absorbing half-Oni hero modelled after an actual Japanese film star. However, here's the thing. This game was originally released in the early 2000s, and while many people were busy discussing Devil May Cry or Resident Evil, Onimusha 2 was quietly setting the standard for what action-adventure games could be. And now with its shiny new remaster, it's finally getting a second chance to remind the world of just how ahead of its time it really was. So join me today in this officially sanctioned Lady Decade Cross Capcom sponsored video, diving headfirst into this newly resurrected and restored relic from one of the company's golden ages. We'll be examining why this remaster isn't just welcome, but long overdue. I am Lady Decade, and it's time to talk about one of the best forgotten jewels of the PlayStation 2 era. Back in 2002, Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny arrived during what you might call Capcom's overachiever phase. Just 1 year after the original Onimusha Warlords carved its way onto the PlayStation 2, Capcom fired out this sequel with all the urgency of a studio trying to win a bet. But this wasn't just some quick cash-in, oh no. Onimusha 2 was a full-scale evolution. Where the first game had essentially been Resident Evil with a katana, Samurai's Destiny blew the roof off its own foundations. It expanded the scope, added a new protagonist, multiple playable characters, branching narratives, a gift-giving system that lets you influence allies, and crucially, more demons to impale, because, of course. Yet, despite all of this, the game never received the recognition that, in my opinion, it deserved. After all, it was launched into a very crowded room, rubbing shoulders with the likes of Devil May Cry, Metal Gear Solid 2, Final Fantasy X, and the looming spectre of Grand Theft Auto 3. And while those titles hogged the spotlight with their angsty protagonists and open-world chaos, Onimusha 2 quietly honed its craft in the background. Part supernatural thriller, part historical fanfiction, and all wrapped up in a moody fixed camera shell. And the result? A cult classic. The kind of game people speak of in hushed tones and YouTube comments. The kind of game that never got dozens of sequels but somehow stuck in people's heads. In fact, across all entries, Onimusha has racked up a very respectable 8.7 million sales worldwide, making it Capcom's 10th best selling franchise of all time. So therefore, Onimusha has been experienced a whole lot more than people would realise. And yet, ask the average gamer under 30 what Onimusha is, and you'll probably get a blank stare followed by, is that the samurai guy from Smash Bros? No, it's not. But that's exactly why this remaster matters. It's a long overdue chance to reintroduce one of Capcom's most daring, distinctive and demon-filled masterpieces to a generation that's never even touched a memory card, which is why it's so important that the game has been re-released today. You can grab Onimusha 2 right now using my link in the description or pinned comment. It's available on PC and all modern platforms. Even better, Capcom's offering a double pack that bundles both the first two games into one convenient purchase. However, before you dive in, you're likely to want to stick around for a bit longer, so I can show you exactly why Onimusha 2 earned its cult classic status. Let's just say that there's a reason that Onimusha 2 still feels special, especially if, like me, you have a soft spot for the early 2000s, fixed camera drama, and samurai sword slashing that's just a little bit theatrical. The original premise for the series was very unique, with the idea of it dating all the way back to 1997. That year, Yoshiki Okamoto pitched the concept of Sengoku Biohazard, essentially a ninja-themed spin on Capcom's 1996 hit Resident Evil. Set in Japan's Sengoku period, the idea revolved around a deadly ninja house packed with booby traps, echoing the infamous mansion from Resident Evil, but with combat focused on swords and shuriken rather than guns. Interestingly, the project was originally planned for the Nintendo 64's ill-fated 64DD add-on, but we all know how that one turned out. The first two games, as mentioned, would both originally debut on the PS2, and Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny utilizes a control scheme typical of Capcom's classic survival horror titles, most notably the one made famous by Resident Evil. The title was developed by a different team than the one behind the original game. This new team shifted the focus more towards adventure over pure action, aiming to add greater depth to the overall experience. Due to its shared lineage, Onimusha 2 is basically what you'd get if Resident Evil took off his trench coat, picked up a katana and time-travelled to feudal Japan. Built on the same tense survival horror DNA as Resident Evil, it features familiar mechanics like fixed camera angles, healing herbs, puzzling obstacles, and relentless enemies. But instead of guns, you wield swords, bows, and even a matchlock rifle. Combat is more about precise timing than mindless button mashing, rewarding players with powerful Isen insta-kills if they strike at just the right moment. With its original noughties release, Onimusha 2 was built using an enhanced version of the same engine used for the first game. However, it introduced several experimental systems, branching paths, gift-giving mechanics to influence party members, and relationship-based progression that allowed different characters to join you depending on your actions. This was likely inspired by the success of other character-driven RPGs of the era, as well as an attempt to increase the game's replayability and emotional investment. Yoshiki Okamoto, the original creator of Onimusha, stayed involved in a broader producer role, but was not the direct creative force this time. This hands-off approach enabled the new team to experiment with features such as more in-depth NPC interactions, less linear storytelling, and even side character missions. In short, Samurai's Destiny is a bold sequel that once again captures the atmosphere of classic Resident Evil, fuses it with samurai-era storytelling, and spices it up with stylish action and clever role-playing. It's tense, it's tactical, and it's packed with personality, making it one of the most unique cult classics Capcom ever produced. The result was a game that isn't your average one-man vengeance story, oh no. Onimusha 2 gave us a proper ensemble cast. Alongside our main man Jubei Yagyu, and we'll get back to him later, you could form alliances with 4 additional characters, each offering different playstyles, abilities, and narrative flavour. These include a vodka-swigging monk, a stealthy ninja, a bookish mercenary with a rifle, and Nobunaga's own sister disguised as a travelling swordswoman. Basically, imagine the Avengers if they all hated each other slightly more and occasionally handed out folding fans instead of emotional support. And speaking of fans, like literal fans, as briefly touched on earlier, you could actually influence which allies joined you in battle by giving them gifts. So not just plot progression, but actual tangible gameplay changes depending on how thoughtful you were with your presence. Visually, the game was peak PS2 era, and I mean that as a compliment, because Capcom didn't try to create a lifeless, hyper-realistic world. They gave us painterly, pre-rendered backdrops that looked like feudal Japan by way of a nightmare art gallery. Misty forests, demonic castles, cursed villages frozen in time. Every frame was oozing atmosphere out of every single pore, and thanks to the fixed camera angles, you never quite know what is going to lurch out next. The title was a cinematic before cinematic became a synonym for walking slowly while someone talks about their dead wife. And then there's the lore, because in case you hadn't realised, Onimusha wasn't just making things up as it went along, it was blending actual Japanese history with horror fantasy like some sort of delicious yokai flavoured stew. For example, Jubei Yakyu is based on a real historical swordsman. Oyu is a reimagined version of Oichi Nobunaga's real-life sister. Even Ike, the greedy monk, is a mashup of actual warrior priests who lived and died during Japan's Sengoku period. Capcom basically said, what if we turned history into a demon-slaying anime? And it worked. What made Onimusha 2 special wasn't just its gameplay, it was the fact that it felt alive. A game that respected your intelligence, gave you options, and wasn't afraid to be weird, romantic, violent, and mysterious all at once. And honestly, that's a combination that is still rare today, which is why its return is certainly worth celebrating. However, what's even more impressive is that with this new release of the game, several new features have been added, making the game better than ever. Now, we've all seen remasters that slap on high-res texture packs and call it a day, but Capcom actually put in the work. Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny hasn't just been polished, it's been lovingly sharpened like Jubei's katana after a long day of demon slaying. This includes changes to the difficulty settings. We now have access to 5 glorious options unlocked from the start, so whether you want to breeze through the game on easy, test your metal on normal, or throw yourself headfirst into hell mode, the new one-hit death nightmare for those who just hate themselves, you've got choices. Even critical mode is back for players who enjoy getting mauled by Genma while contemplating the meaninglessness of life, accessibility and masochism side by side. The original games gallery has been given a serious upgrade. Now it supports for higher resolutions, a brand new zoom function, and a whopping 100 pieces of newly added special artwork. And if that's not enough to tickle your nostalgia, you can also dive into 43 tracks from the original soundtrack, all included for your listening pleasure. Every asset in the game, 3D models, visual effects, CG cutscenes, backgrounds, UI, and even fonts, have been upgraded to high definition. You can also freely switch between 16:9 and 4:3 aspect ratios mid-game, giving you full control over how you experience it. Capcom's also packed in a range of quality of life improvements. Easy mode is available right from the start for those who want to focus on the story. Every cutscene can now be skipped immediately. An auto-save feature has been added, and weapons can be swapped on the fly without diving into the menu. It's the classic, but sleeker, faster, and far more player-friendly. Onimusha 2 has never been just another action game. It was part of a moment in gaming where studios were genuinely trying new things, narratively, mechanically, and thematically. It mashed together Japanese history, supernatural horror, fixed camera angles, and complex character dynamics. It didn't just age well, it aged interestingly. Due to this, Onimusha 2 is not ashamed of its 2002 roots. It proudly polishes them. It retains the pre-rendered backgrounds, deliberate camera work, pace, and mood that made the original so memorable, but layers on smoother controls, improved performance, and a far more accessible structure. It's preservation done right. In a time when game design is often built around loot boxes, open worlds, the size of small countries, and maps cluttered with glowing markers, Onimusha 2 stands out as a refreshingly focused experience. You've got a story that's punchy and layered, characters that evolve with your choices, and gameplay that rewards precision and timing. It's lean, and it's challenging, and it respects your time while occasionally killing you for underestimating a skeleton with a spear. Playing this today is a reminder that there was once a time when games could be strange, ambitious, theatrical, and unafraid to mix historical fiction with soul-sucking demons and samurai soap opera. A time when fixed camera angles weren't a design flaw, they were a creative choice. And a time when Capcom would release something utterly bonkers and somehow make it work. This remaster captures all of that magic and makes it work in 2025. The controls are sharp, but the frame rate is smoother, and the additions, auto-saves, difficulty modes, and clean HD presentation are exactly the sort of tweaks that help this game feel fresh without sanding off any of its weird, wonderful edges. It's a masterclass in how to modernise a classic without compromising its identity. But most importantly, it gives new players the perfect opportunity to jump in and gives long-time fans the respect they've been waiting for. This isn't just a game you replay, it's a game you re-experience. And if you've never played it before, I'm honestly jealous. Because the first time you see Jubei enter that burning village, or chain together a perfect series of Issa encounters, or unlock one of the game's many alternate endings, you'll understand why this game has never really left those who grew up with it. Capcom has done something special here. They've reminded us that the past doesn't have to stay in the past. It can still cut through sharp as ever. So yes, this remaster matters because Onimusha 2 should never have been forgotten in the first place, and now, thanks to Capcom, it isn't. So don't forget you can pick up Onimusha 2 right now using the link in my description or pinned comment. It's available on PC and all modern platforms. Capcom's also offering a double pack that bundles both of the first 2 games into one tidy little package. So I hope you have fun, and I'll see you all again in the next video.